Hello world, it's Dave again. Got another wise reading important for you book review recommendation. I don't talk too much about the book itself because I want to leave it open to the reader to enjoy. I just want to say that you should read it. So it's not quite a review. It's a review of my opinion. Um, so the one that I'm reviewing today is in the title is the Dreaming Void by Peter F. Hamilton, and this is set in the same universe as the Commonwealth saga. So you could read these books. You could absolutely read these books without having read the first two, or the other two books that exist in the same universe. But you'd be doing yourself a huge favor to just enjoy many of the different links and allusions in this story back to those previous books that are placed in the same universe. And I have reviewed both of those. That's the what is it, Pandora's Star and Judas Unchained by the same author, of course. So to talk about this book, why do I like it? Why would I recommend it to people? Why do I think it's awesome? It's pretty simple. It has to do, I've talked before about Peter F. Hamilton's style, which I think is that he takes huge, like unbelievable ideas and then places them in really digestible prose. It's not that it's very flowery, it's really straightforward and it's easy to understand. It's really easy to get the image off the page into your head, all the while you're dealing with concepts and imagination that is on such a scale you can't believe that it can be so practically expressed to you. So I would say that that's a major strength, and there's not much that has changed in terms of that style when you go to read this book. So if you really want that sweeping space opera with that level of prose that you can get into your head really easy, he's maintained that style, and it's awesome. I've also learned something that this is really interesting to me. I didn't realize it because I've read some sci-fi, not tons of it, a decent amount, and something that I didn't realize because I looked into more of Peter F. Hamilton is the idea of sexuality in sci-fi books is something that if you read about these kinds of authors, you quickly discover, or I did at least, that it's not a topic that's usually covered when you go into sci-fi. And one of the aspects that I enjoy about reading his books is kind of the larger than life sex lives that these characters live a lot of the time. Like I say, larger than life. So some of it seems a little unbelievable, just like the level at which these people are, performing all these sensual acts and like getting involved with each other, but at the same time kind of believable because you think that shouldn't be an aspect of the human experience that would be ignored, that we are sexual beings. And so to have that as an aspect of the book I think is really important. I just didn't realize before that it was so unique to have that kind of that characteristic as a part of your writing. So that's something that he has, and I guess now is worth mentioning, is if you like your books a little sexier, he pulls it off really, really well. And I had no idea that it was as unique as it is. So this book, I would say the major reason, I don't want to make this just talking about the author's style. I really want to talk about the book specifically because I've talked about the author before in my earlier reviews of his books that I've done. So I'll talk about the things that make this particular book and this series really, really strong that I enjoy. So the Commonwealth Saga, it was interesting to read the first two books that precede this in the universe that he's creating, where the first two books were very, very far in the future, where it was kind of incredible the sort of imagination that he had to bring to the table to try and convey a sense of really being that far in the future. And I thought that was true of the first two books. And then you go to these books, and he moves you 1,000 years into the future beyond the last two books. And you just think to yourself, how is somebody going to pull off that level of technology? How's that going to be conveyed in their ideas and feel like you have a realistic scale where it's still interesting and a believable jump? And I have to say that this is where he kind of hits it out of the park, where I was like, every idea that he brings up is just fascinating, original, and really well executed. It's not just that he kind of passes by it. The way in which an idea is presented as a technology or a social theme as a result of the times is really well developed. It's something that he'll introduce in a subtle way and then develop as the story continues until you really have a sense of this technology or social change. And it was really cleverly presented to you throughout the book. So something I think that people are really, really going to enjoy. I can give you just a little taste of that without really ruining any of the plot, is that the culture at this point in the history of the book is separated into, um, I would say there's three factions, but there's I would say there's two that I could talk about most specifically. One of which is called Higher, one of which is called Accelerator, and the Higher is just absolutely fascinating. They've taken um, genetic manipulation to a point where your body kind of like, not only do you have, almost a computer level brain, or a computer far more advanced than we would think in terms of what your mind is capable of achieving, but then what you can physically do with your body is just off the charts. If you can load into your skin that you want to have a different skin tone, then it's called bionanonics. So if you think of bio or nanotechnology, that you might have a machine the size of a cell, but that's basically what your whole body is made up of, is bionanonics. And so you could change something like skin tone, you could change something like your eye color, anything on the fly. You can change every aspect of your body. And so you can imagine people, whole range of how they look, but everybody's usually quite young and handsome or attractive and beautiful and all these different things. Uh, and they can even, it's like it creates a, we work on an electromagnetic field. That's what allows our brain and heart to work. I believe it's our brain that uses the most electricity that we know of currently. That's what absorbs the most of it. Although, our heart is really reliant on that, our nervous system, essentially, where their bodies now have such an incredible field that they can manipulate dozens of different things. From being able to, spacesuits have been made irrelevant by this kind of technology, because you can emit a sort of force field around your body using this, and so you have a natural spacesuit that prevents things like radiation and all this getting through to you. So you'll see these sort of characters walking on planets in the open that don't even have a proper atmosphere, because their bionanonics can create everything for them for a period of time. It is a drain on them to use it, but they can do that. They can they can emit, like, they can actually attack people with this. It can emit a pulse of energy from it, and just really, really fascinating stuff. I'm not doing it, of course, quite the same justice of reading the book. I'm just trying to give you a little taste of what it is to kind of have some of the ideas that he's portrayed in the book. And so another big strength, that's one aspect I want to talk about, is that the technology, if you want some really imaginative technology, that you're going to find it here. And these books have been written so recently too. It's my habit to read books and usually realize after the fact that it was quite old. That, they were written back in the 1980s or early 1990s or something like that, where these were written in the in the last, call it, 5 years. I think it was 2005, 7, and 9. I've got this up here. Okay, no, 7, 8, and 10. So this, when you want cutting edge ideas, and this author, that's another thing to his credit, he will look at tons and tons and tons of different cutting edge science, and then try and incorporate, that into his ideas and where it might go. So he's really good at staying up on that kind of thing to incorporate it into his writing. Another aspect that I really, really enjoy about his writing is the way this story is presented. Is that there's the whole universe has been, not the universe, sorry, our galaxy has been circumnavigated, and in circumnavigating the galaxy, they found this thing called the Void. And the Void has been, there are other species, other intelligences in our galaxy that were aware of this Void, and they know its history. And its history before is that this thing exists almost like a black hole. I can't describe it that well. I don't know the science descriptors to do a good job of it, but I can kind of stumble my way around. So it's like a black hole that they found in the universe, that at one point in, sorry, the galaxy, at one point in time, began to expand, and anything that expanded beyond was eaten in its wake. And some of the oldest species in the galaxy are afraid of what's called a devourment phase, where it will actually expand and eat the entire galaxy and kill everybody with it. And so that's what the oldest species are afraid of. Now, humans came along after, developing for, thousands and thousands of years now, and they're very, very advanced. And they've created something called the Gaia field, and it's a sort of telepathy. It's a way that you can have in you bionanonics, or a sort of a genetic technology that allows you to emit your emotions. And when one of these individuals in the human race took this new technology on, they started to have these dreams. And what they realized that these dreams that this individual was having were from inside this void, that there is a society inside this void. And now it's become this massive religious movement with billions of people who want to enter the void. But the alien species are afraid of this religious movement in human society because they think that when going into the void, the humans will trigger this devourment phase that they're terrified of. Um, and so the story is told through kind of everything outside of the void, but you are told clips of you were basically told the dreams that the human dreamer had of inside the void. So you have these two story arcs occurring outside the void and inside the void. And on the inside of the void, it's really, really fascinating because it's almost like a fantasy story is being told alongside a science fiction story, because inside the void, everybody's at a very low level of technology, almost a medieval level, except that everyone is capable of telepathy and telekinetic ability, where they call it their third hand, and you can manipulate things with telepathy. And there's even people who can manipulate eggs and kind of form creatures as they grow inside an egg. They're called the egg shapers. And then they've created like it's not genetically manipulated, it's telekinetically manipulated creatures that then kind of do their bidding. They're called GE chimps and GE cats. So I guess you're kind of like, oh, I guess that means genetically engineered. He's just giving a nod to that. And his dreams, the dreamer, are then told through the story of the void, and the void is alongside what's going on outside it. And both are incredible stories. You really, really enjoy hearing the adventures of this individual that on the inside of the void it focuses on. His name is Eddard, and you enjoy the story outside of it. And just the master storyteller that Peter F. Hamilton is, he's able to intertwine these stories and, dozens of characters and make it all fit, and excellent foreshadowing and everything along with it. So a really flexing of his muscle, I would say, in creativity, to be able to tell his traditional deep sci-fi story and then do this like interesting sci-fi fantasy take on the inside of the void as it relates to people outside of it. So just fantastic creative effort. So that's why I would recommend it. It's just this, it's recent, so you want some cutting edge ideas, you're going to get that because the trilogy was written so recently. I'm on the second book now, almost done, so I'll have the review up for it pretty soon. You've got this interesting sci-fi fantasy story that is interwoven with it. You've got the unique, call it libido aspects that he's writing about that are in his books, which I didn't know to talk about before, but I realize now are very important because they're so unique. And like I'm going to talk about every single time that I recommend one of his books, the clarity of his writing, to be able to approach, such grandiose ideas and themes and be able to convey them in a way that is not hard to understand. So for somebody who's never read sci-fi before, you could jump into a book like this and immediately be caught up in the characters and not distracted by just dozens and dozens of words that you don't understand and themes that aren't going to make sense to you. So really, really something that is enjoyable and worth recommending. I give this guy 5 out of 5 stars, or whatever scale that exists. He is just an exceptional writer and continues to impress me. And I think, I'm not, the first one to say this. I think he's actually the most popular science fiction writer in the UK right now. So he's got nothing to prove. The guy's doing really, really well for himself. But I still like to make these reviews because I find the books fascinating. So next, coming up to this, will be the Temporal Void. That's the second one in this trilogy, and then the Evolutionary Void. And I will continue to give updates and my opinions of the story as I go. And that's about it for this one. So I'm going to put a link for the book down below, maybe a link to his wiki site so you can read a little bit about the author as well. But yeah, if you're looking for some good sci-fi, I would recommend this series, the Void Trilogy, Peter F. Hamilton. But if you can bear it, I would read the other 2 books that I recommended beforehand, which are the Commonwealth Saga, kind of the birth of the universe that he's creating here, which are known. The first one is Pandora's Star, and the second is Judas Unchained. Okay, so if you enjoy this, please do like, subscribe, share. I'll be making a bunch more reviews in the future. And like I like to say, until we meet again next time, world, thanks for tripping with Dave. Ciao for now.